What is going on, everyone? StevoSupremo back again with another video. And today I wanted to talk about a very important topic to me, and that is friendship. Friends, and more importantly, your gaming friends. And really, I wanted to talk about my first true gaming friend, one of the best friends I've ever had in my whole entire life. Damon Coles, Mr. Nice Guy. I'll post his picture and stuff up through here while we're going throughout the video, but man, like the best friend a guy could ever ask for in a time where a person like me really needed a friend like him. And I'll get into all that. Let's kick the stories off right now. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm 37 years old. I'll be turning 38 this year. And it's one of those things where growing up during the time where I grew up, during the 90s, 80s, 90s, it was still one of those things where if you were a gamer coming up, you were still kind of looked up as nerdy or kind of like an outcast and put to the side. And I don't think that's the case anymore at all. Like my son, like his age, like here they're going to school talking about games all the time. Like it's just accepted. Everyone's doing it now. I think that kind of turned over like during the PS2, Xbox era, like all that stuff started going out the window. There's younger people who watch this, you can correct me, just from what I'm seeing from my kids, everyone plays games now. So it's not looked down upon at all or like as this thing where you're a nerd or you're outcast or anything. But kind of back then you still were. Now, even though I enjoyed playing games a lot back in the day, like I was still limited to what I had. Either you had my Super Nintendo growing up where I had one game for years, then finally getting a PS1. But again, you only had a couple games you could rotate with. And I never really had that friend who loved playing the games as much as I did. And I remember some of my neighbors growing up with would get the brand new Sega Dreamcast and stuff when it came out. And I would be more excited than them because like, yes, I get to play their Dreamcast, but they weren't really into games. So they could have cared less like really to get it, but they were still happy they got it. So I never really had that true gaming friend until I got into high school that could really relate for a love of gaming like I had. And I'll never forget it. That's when Mr. Nice Guy comes into the story here. When I want to say it was sophomore year of high school, I was transferring from one high school to another one. And I was actually living with my grandmother at the time. So again, having to make new relationships, new friendships and stuff, starting over from scratch all over again. And it was kind of, school year had already started, so it's not even coming in at the beginning of the year. It's kind of like near the middle, kind of first half. So it makes it even more awkward for anyone. Like if you're trying to start a new school, you always want to start at the beginning with everyone else. When you're coming in transferring, like it's rough goings. But I'll never forget going to the bus stop the first day. There he was sitting there with a Game Boy Advance. I was like, oh wow, there's someone with a Game Boy Advance. That's awesome. Now, still being the new guy, kind of shy, didn't say anything, just got on the bus, go on to school, go your day. And getting off the bus, he's still sitting there playing it. And I mean, I was curious the whole time, like, what is he playing? So the next day, going to the bus, saw it again. He's sitting out there playing the Game Boy Advance down at the bus stop. Gets on the bus and I was like, you know what? I got to ask him, like, what are you playing? So while we're sitting at the bus stop waiting for the bus to come, I finally went over to him like, hey man, what's going on? What are you playing? He's like, oh, I'm playing Golden Sun. It's like, Golden Sun? Like, what is that? He's like, it's a JRPG. Like I really love JRPGs and it's an RPG game and I'm just grinding out through here. And like, all right, you mind if I like watch? Are you telling me about it? I was like, no, come on ahead. By that time the bus comes and I sat beside him on the bus and I watched him play Golden Sun. And he was explaining it to me, the concept and everything. Because back then, I wasn't really into JRPGs at all. It was actually him who really got me into wanting to try out my first JRPGs. And watching him play and explain Golden Sun to me, it was like, man, this looks awesome. Like when he was summoning the Jinn and stuff, and the attacks, it looked really cool. So I was like, man, I really got to just give them a try. And that's why that game will always hold a close place in my heart, just because of him and him introducing it to me and finally seeing JRPGs like through him while playing that, and just that connection, that click. And then I started to tell him how, hey, I got a PS2 at the house. If you ever feel like coming over and wanting to play some PlayStation 2, like, you're more than welcome to come on by, man. And boom, the friendship, that right there, that's where it started. And he was so excited because he had never got to play a PlayStation 2 or anything yet. You know, back then, I mean, a lot of us were poor where we were growing up at. So I was actually able to only get one because I took a summer job with my uncle and worked my butt off and spent my whole first paycheck on a PS2, and WWE SmackDown was the first game I got. So it was, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to even get one. Like, I never would have got one. So by this time, it had been a couple years, though. I think I had it for maybe a year already, or maybe 2 years before. But he had never really gotten to play one or anything. So it's like, come on over, man. I had Devil May Cry at that point and some other games. And I'll never forget that first time he came over. Like, he was just smiling ear to ear, like, over, just like, man, this is so incredible. Because he was just so used to playing his Game Boy Advance or his older systems and not getting to experience the new stuff yet. And it made me happy that he had a good time playing all that stuff. But I was excited because while he would play the PS2, I was playing his Game Boy Advance. I didn't have a Game Boy Advance yet because I was more on the console side, not really handheld. And that actually led to me finally getting my own Game Boy Advance. And he eventually let me borrow Golden Sun so I could finally play through a JRPG, or attempt to. Now, I never did finish it back then in those days because it led to me wanting to get a JRPG for my PS2. And that was Xenosaga. That was one of the very first JRPGs I truly ever attempted to try to beat. And I remember he would come over and watch me play it sometimes and kind of like, hey, instead of going through, we should probably grind stuff first. And that's really when JRPG stuff started to kick off for me. But I never got to complete Xenosaga. Like, it just started getting longer and longer, and I eventually traded my PS2 in to get Xbox. So I never got to finish it. But it would always be awesome for him coming over and just we'd play games together. We'd take turns, like with Xenosaga, going through it. I'd play some, then I'd let him hop on the controller and play some. And finally just having someone to talk about games with, because I never had that growing up, to actually have that friend I could share that relationship and the love of gaming with for. So it just made high school that much better to finally have that friend to talk and share with. But we had so many great gaming memories together. One of the great ones that I really enjoyed with Damon was when Resident Evil 4 was going to be coming out. And I had already planned at this time, it might have been my junior year or senior year. I got to think of dates. When was it 2004? I'm not even gonna worry about it. But I had actually finally gotten a job while during school. I was working at the bowling alley as a mechanic in the back, working on the machines. So I was able to get money to get games and stuff now. And I couldn't, it's like, man, Resident Evil 4 is coming out. At this point, I had a GameCube and I had it pre-ordered. I had the strategy guide pre-ordered, and we had planned, Mr. Nice Guy and two of our other friends. We're going to go to my other friend, his name was Tristan. We were going to go to his house, and we were going to just sit there and play Resident Evil 4 all night. We would take turns with the controller. One of us would have the strategy guide, and we would just be going through it and playing through Resident Evil 4 as long as we could make it until we fell asleep. And it was just so awesome. Like nights like that, when I actually had the energy to make it up through a night, just sitting there. I remember he really didn't want to touch the controller because he wasn't really too much into survival horror stuff until he started to see it was more kind of action based, because he hated getting jump scared and everything like that. So he would want to be the guy with the guide and reading out to us what to do. But we played it for hours. I mean, we had the game snacks, we had the sodas, we had the chips. It was just a blast. That night was incredible. We stayed up till about 3 or 4 in the morning till I finally passed out and like I'm going to bed. And just played Resident Evil 4. Then we woke up and did the same thing, played it through the rest of the day. Then finally, I went back home later on that evening, and I was the one, of course, it's my stuff, so I'm taking all the Resident Evil stuff home. But of course, Damon was like my neighbor, so anytime he wanted to come over and still watch me proceed through the game, he could. And just awesome nights like that, just I would never forget them. And eventually, time moves forward, and we graduate high school and everything. But me and Damon stayed real close friends still. So close to where I was still working at the bowling alley, and he had gotten a job at one of the local colleges, Liberty University, where we lived at. And he was trying to tell me, he's like, man, you need to come and work over here because we can go to college for free. And that time I'm still trying to figure myself out, what I want to do in my life. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to put in over there to try to get a job over there and get my degree for free. And ended up getting hired over there. And so again, I'm still with my best friend. We're working together. We get to see each other every day. We weren't like a same unit, but I would actually pick him up and take him to work and give him rides home because we worked the same hours. And again, still had my gaming buddy I could share awesome gaming stuff with. And at that time, we're both making money, so we can both buy games and share and let each other borrow games. So it was great just to have him there. And without him, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere I am in life now, because if I never went to that school, I probably never would have gotten to law enforcement or anything, which took up 19 years of my life. It's just incredible how it kind of works out like that. So without him, I would have never went to that school. I would have kicked everything off. So much to be thankful for him. But after that, of course, we're working, and then I finally meet my soon-to-be wife. But before that happened, got to that point where, hey, it's time for us to all go get our own place, not live with our parents or anything anymore. So I'll never forget, we got a little apartment we could meet. I had another roommate. His name was Tim. We called him Tatas. And we had space for one more person. I was like, hey, Damon, you want to come in and be our third roommate? And he was like, sure. So he came in as a third roommate, and man, those were some good times. 'Cause at that time, the Xbox 360's out. So then we're getting to have all these Xbox memories. And my other roommate, Timmy, he had a Nintendo Wii. So we'd play his Wii, my 360. And another great gaming memory I'll never forget was when BioShock came out. And again, I know Mr. Nice Guy, Damon, he did not like survival horror stuff. I was like, hey, you have got to try this demo out of BioShock. I cannot wait till it comes out. We've got to get it day one, but you got to try it out. And I don't know if anyone remembers, I'll have it playing here if you haven't played BioShock or if it's a little foggy in your memory. But at the beginning of the game, when the plane crashes and you're going through the water to the lighthouse area, to lead you down to Rapture, you finally go through the doors, and it's like pitch dark in there. And I'll never forget, got Damon in there. He already doesn't want to play it, so he's sitting there playing it, and he's going in through the doors, and it's dark. And he sees how dark it is. He says, forget this. And he turns around to leave, and the door is shut right in your face. Like, it will not let you leave. And he's like, nope. He dropped the controller, said, I'm not playing it, and just went off, because that scared the crap out of him. It was one of the funniest things ever, like seeing him get so scared at those doors shutting, because I didn't even know it really happened, because when I played, I just kept walking forward. But just the timing of him turning around and the door shutting in his face freaked him out, and he was done. He was done right there. But it's weird, because he soon became to like survival horror games and stuff like that. And, getting older, I eventually got married, and I was the leasing out that apartment. So there was an agreement that by the time I was ready to get married, he was going to move out, and so was my other roommate. They were perfectly fine with it. So they move out, but we always kept in touch. The thing that was, and I know this is going to be a long story, but his friendship just means a lot to me. So I want to tell about everything. The biggest hurdle in our friendship was when he eventually got an opportunity to move out of the state. And at that point, he was always a brother to me. Like, I always saw him as a brother, but like my little brother. I always felt like I had to look out for him. It was my responsibility because his upbringing, it felt like, I don't want to get into all his details, but felt like he really didn't have anyone there for him. And I was like, you know what? I could be that guy. I'm going to be there for him because I love him to death anyway. He's my best friend. So I want to do that. So he got an opportunity, though, from another coworker of ours who was going to go out and be a part of a church in a different state. And he's like, you know what, Damon, you need a new start in life. Why don't you just come with me and be a part of this as well? And he took that leap of faith, said, you know what, I'm going to do it. So he had left to go to Arkansas to start anew over there. And I was scared for him and I was worried because I had always been here for him. If their times were tough or anything, like, I got your back, man. But I couldn't have his back if he's like halfway across the country. It was going to make it tough. And of course, with technology and everything, it was easy to keep up. So we kept in touch with each other all the time, talking about gaming and everything. But it led to a point where the guy who had brought him out there was going to even go somewhere else and kind of leave him there now. And I remember being really angry at that time because, like, this guy up and took, like, my best friend from where I could kind of take care and keep an eye on him somewhere else to where, like, I can't. And now he's leaving. And man, I remember being so frustrated at that time. And I would share that frustrations with my wife. She's like, hey, you just got to trust, like, he'll be able to, he can take care of himself. He's a grown man. And so I'm like, I know, but it's just, I don't know, you want to be there for your friends. And I felt like he was getting left out to dry. But there was nothing I could really do about it. So at that point, we're still talking about games and stuff. And he ends up getting a job, actually, at a Walmart, stocking and stuff, just kind of a minimum wage type job just to make ends meet. But he was still doing his thing, and he was happy. Like, he had a woman he had met that she had had a kid and everything, and they were getting into this good relationship. I think that ended up falling through, though, too. But I remember just a couple years would go by, and I would always tell him, like, hey, man, just, you need to come back to Virginia. Come back. We'll get you on your feet here. Like, start anew here. And you could even live with me for a little while, make things easy. Like, we didn't care. My wife was cool with it. And he was actually thinking about doing it. Like, I remember the Facebook messages we talk and everything. He's like, I'm thinking about coming back, man, as soon as my car gets fixed. Because he would have car problems all the time, and he was so worried about trying to drive it back over here that it wasn't going to make it. But I'll never forget when, what was it, 2018, Resident Evil 2 had been announced and it was coming out, and we were both sharing our love for that game, like how much we started really, he knew I love Resident Evil, then he finally really started diving into the series. And he had sent me a message. He had finally gotten a PS4 that year, able to afford it finally. I think he got it with his tax return. And I had all these PS4 games I would mail him so he could play, and then he'd send them back afterwards after he'd finish it, and we'd talk about the games and stuff. He would be participant in the podcast stuff. He'd come on and leave questions for the podcast on another gaming podcast we would do. But yeah, Resident Evil 2 was announced, and he had said, hey, man, I pre-ordered the deluxe edition. I cannot wait. And unfortunately, that was the last contact I got to have with my best friend because he soon passed away after that. And I remember at the time, and I don't get too emotional or anything in videos, so I hope I hold together here. But a couple months before, in September, was the last message that I had gotten from him on Facebook saying he had finally got the game, or the deluxe edition, pre-ordered. A couple months prior, he had sent me a picture. He had gotten an injury at work, really bad, like leg injury, pretty gruesome. And it had put him out of work, which, I mean, we were kind of happy for him for it because he could just sit back and relax at home, play games. We didn't think it was no big deal at the time. But he had told me his diabetes had made it worse. And I remember, like, immediately calling him after. I was like, dude, when did you become a diabetic and have that problem? And that wasn't something that he picked up until after he like left here, because he wasn't taking medicine or anything for diabetes since I had known him. But it's something he developed while after he had moved away. So it's something he had to keep tabs on. And I was like, man, like another thing, like if he was over here, I felt like I could have helped him with that and helped him manage it better. But apparently there was complications with the injury that had happened and his diabetes, just making it worse with the infections. And while he was over there, he picked up drinking alcohol. Like he never touched a lick of it while he stayed over here at all. It was nothing we ever, like I grew up, I never drank alcohol or anything in my life. And I mean, that's how we grew up. Like while he was over here, he never touched it. And again, uh, just me being that big brother vibe, I would have probably kept, now nothing against anyone who drinks alcohol, but if he, like just with his issues with being a diabetic and the problem that he had with his leg and what it can do to your blood, like it just was a mix that was not good. And I remember getting the message from a relative of his through Facebook because they knew we were best friends. And it was someone who kind of lived to the area. And they messaged me through Facebook saying he had passed away because of it. And I remember that day sitting there with my wife. I couldn't believe it because we were the same age. And at that time, 2018, just in our young 30s, knowing that my first true best friend, not just gaming friend, but best friend, was gone. And I was torn apart. I never really, like I haven't experienced a lot of death within my family. My grandfather, having to experience one grandfather, one grandmother, were the only deaths in my life I'd had to experience at that point. A friend the same age, like having to deal with it, was really tough, especially someone I had just had such a close relationship with. So that was one of the main reasons I want to do a video like this too, like just to keep his memory going for me and everything. I know I haven't shared all of our memories together, but I just remember because that message of him being so excited about finally getting to play Resident Evil 2, one of my favorite games of all time. I was so looking forward to us being able to sit there and share that conversation together to see how great it was, because that remake was incredible the way they did it, and I know he would have loved it. And every time a new game gets announced or a new JRPG that comes out that I know he would have loved, he just always comes to mind, and the experiences he would be having playing all the new stuff we have now, I know he would just be in love with it. Like he'd love all the stuff we'd be getting now. So it just stinks thinking about it, but I love him to death. He was like I said, my first true gaming friend, gaming buddy. And anytime there's a thing where I can make a character, have someone in the party, he is always a party member in my party, hands down all the time. I either name him after his real name or I name him Mr. Nice Guy, just because that's what we always called him. So, but hopefully you guys have had a friend like that, and I have friends like that now too, who I keep in touch with all the time. One of my best friends back in Virginia, he's always calling me are we gaming tonight? Are we gaming tonight? And just because of the time difference, it gets tough to work out, but we'll still play together. I still keep in touch with some of my AGP family, talking about games, especially Alex, Return to Mother Base. We talk quite a lot. So it's good to have that gaming friend to share stuff with. But just with the way technology is today, it's so easy to just stay connected and share that stuff together. But back then, having that in-person friend was just incredible. It meant the world to me. It changed my life having someone like that. He helped change my life with my gaming taste and stuff that I liked. And yeah, without him, some of the things that happened in my life probably would have never happened. So I have him to thank for a lot of things. So, Damon, if you're hearing this, man, I love you. I thank you for everything you did and every part of my life you were involved with. You were awesome. And I can't wait to see you again one day, buddy. I love you and I miss you. I'll see you guys in the next one.